Hey everyone, Graham from Loudwire here, and today we're with Tobias Forge of Ghost. Thank you so much for being here today, man.
Thank you.
We so appreciate it, and you are our pick for the metal artist of the 2010s. So we would love, yeah, there you go. So we would love to talk a little about your decade and sort of the rise of Ghost. Even before then, even you were in bands like Repugnant, Magna Cartel, Crash Diet, and like some of these bands had like a nice following, and you were getting like underground success. But when these bands didn't pan out, and you were going on to Ghost, you know, you're like approaching your mid 20s, almost your 30s. Like, what was your hope like when it came to making a career and a life from metal music?
I mean, it's nowadays looking back on it, it feels so. Just because I know better now, not only do I know what how things transpired, of course, but also knowing a little bit more what it takes to get there, and it's hard not to look back on whatever I thought back then to being slightly naive and kind of off. Um, because I always felt that I was just around the corner from the big break, and it dawned on me later, of course, how far away I was from that. So it's easy to sort of look back on your actions back then as like, oh. But in it wasn't like all in like to no avail. It was definitely worth doing, and there was a lot of my determination and a lot of my um, uh, sort of methods were also on the offset of having spent a lot of time in bands that weren't really doing any uh, greater progress. So once opportunities sort of arose, it was on one hand easy to sort of like, let's do that and that, like. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me when I was 18, I probably would have formulated something along the lines of, I wanted Repugnant to be. It ended up being a sort of an underground band,
Yeah.
and now with a slight sort of, I guess, one hand sort of cult. If I hadn't been known, it would have been a cult band completely, I guess, now, with the time passing, and especially Repugnant has one quality that sort of automatically sort of shoots you up into cult hell or heaven, if you want, is that we never made it, and that's one of the prerequisites of cool bands. But then again, I did, so I sort of soiled that. Um, but back in 1999, I was definitely thinking that, oh yeah, we're gonna sign to Roadrunner and become the next Sepultura.
Wow.
I would have loved to, like, gotten to a position that a lot of death metal bands are in now. I mean, the ones that sort of rose sort of above the underground, a Monomorph or um, Arch Enemy, whatever,
Sure.
like, but bands like that sort of perfected their thing into a livelihood, and that was definitely what I was hoping for.
Is there
But
still an itch at all to play death metal?
me physically, personally, yeah, yes. But I'm not sure if there is if there is a suitable time and place for it. Not only because I'm very busy, but also I'm very torn when it comes to that, because I also know that I know my sort of I know my personality well enough, or I try to be. I know at least that bit, that it's going to be hard to do it. It needs to be purposely like one show or something. It needs to be very, very, as soon as I'm getting a little bit of slack, and anything is sort of unwritten, all of a sudden I'm just like, then I want to like do it for real. As much as I wanted Repugnant at one time to be, the claim to fame, and more my claim to fame, and I wanted that to be the band that was gonna turn into a fully fledged, full-time sort of hardcore touring band. Now it's almost like, well, I don't know, I want it to be sort of in the same, I'd rather be associated with bands that I like worship, Necrophagia and Mephisto and Morbid and bands like that never really got anywhere, and just I think that that's where it belongs. Also from a writing point of view, I'm not sure if I can make a record like that anymore. You can shoot yourself in the foot in order to sort of make a more credible limp, but it would be hard not to go in with kind of too good guitars, a little bit too good of a drum kit, and a little bit too pricey studio, and invest a little bit too much time to make this great sounding record that will sound nothing like how it should be. Remember, I mean, my theory still, and I'm sorry for anyone who feels shat on, but all my favorite death metal records are made by 20-year-olds. One exception is Altars of Madness, because they were like 24. Yeah. But the rest of them were all made by young teenagers still living with their moms, and
you can't really tap into that.
You cannot. It's just a genre that you are at your prime when you're like 18, 20, and that doesn't mean that everything beyond that suck. Yeah. But just look at the top 20 of those historic records, like no questions asked.
Yeah,
it's dominated by, unfortunately, only dudes. Unfortunately, but that just got their driver's license basically.
Pretty much. So if setlists.fm is a credible source, it says your first show was October 23rd with Ghost. That is 2010. In Würzburg, Germany, at the Hammer of Doom festival. What do you remember about that show?
It's hectic. It was very, very hectic. And I was sort of TMing that tour as well, which was a little... Don't do that. If you're also to be on stage. It was very chaotic because the band was so new. Not Ghost only, but the band, we didn't know each other as a group.
Yeah. And
we had been rehearsing for like 3 weeks or something. Rightfully so, everybody was looking at us, or me basically, like, okay, so what do we do? Okay, put this shit on and okay, cool, go. Oh, the intro. Yeah, you can start it now. Okay, oh, here goes nothing. And but it turned out quite cool. The first show I don't remember very fondly, but definitely the second one. Our second show was definitely way more in place. Not only, I mean, we hadn't transformed into a band 100 shows into our career, but it was just, I think that the novelty of the first show, also that attitude sort of lent itself a little to the crowd as well. So people were just like, click, and it was just a very hard crowd, and I don't think it was. And to add on to that, no offense whatsoever, but it was in Germany, and Germans are generally quite they're like, okay, you rock or you suck. It doesn't. It's not like playing Argentina where everyone's just you're just crazy and screaming and jumping around, and so it was very hard. It was a hard crowd to sort of figure this new thing out, and it was kind of, you know, the basics of the show was also rather unintuitive in a way. You know, you put shit on, which is kind of the opposite of what you want to do when you go up on a hot stage. So there were breathing issues, there were all kinds of issues, visual issues, like vision issues, and all kinds of stuff that sort of. So I think sometimes people credit the band for being animated in the beginning. For the wrong reason. They think that it was actually, we were immobilized. That was the problem. So, but it served its purpose because it was supposed to be sort of eerie and weird. Yeah, it became eerie and weird, but that also had an effect on you as a performer. It was kind of strange. However, when we got to London the day after, what really changed was that the crowd was absolutely avid. It was an explosion when we played, and everybody was singing the songs, and it seemed a little bit more like on the first one, we just came to a festival. We were just the odd, novelty, weird thing that was going on at the clown band, you know, and then the day after, we had like a surge of people from all over the world that came to that festival with the intention of seeing this. That had been brewing for half a year or something since the MySpace songs came out and the single came out and all that. So it was way more like a welcome, whereas the first one was a little bit more like auditioning in front of a committee.
Yeah.
No offense, I'm sorry. It's like, it's just that's definitely how it felt.
There was a huge change between Opus and Infestissimum. Because as a fan, I remember when Opus came out and thinking, wow, this is a really cool, like, throwback, occult, kind of doomy record. And when you went into Infestissimum, it suddenly became more grand and sort of defied genre as well. Can you tell me about making that transition between albums?
I was very adamant about writing new material very quickly after Opus. And I was very, very determined not to make just a continuation of that record, Opus. Because in 2011, I mean, except for superlatives here and there, the three words that everyone was talking about, or that you kept seeing everywhere, was Merciful Fate, Blue Oyster Cult, and Hype. Nothing against those bands whatsoever. I'm a giant Merciful Fate fan. I love Blue Oyster Cult. They are nowhere near as much of an influence as people think they are for me. Especially not back then. I'd say I probably listen to them more nowadays than I did back then. But never ever were they like as much of a big influence as I can list so many more things that would be way more obvious. Where I can say, like, that riff is from that riff is from that riff is from that vocal bit is from that. It's just that the combination of basically slightly more confrontational rock and sort of AOR vocals that makes everybody think that it's, Blue Oyster Cult. Just because a lot of the other sort of occult rock bands usually have just one singer, like All the Troubles and all the St. Vituses and all those. It's just one singer. So you don't have that sort of multi-layered vocals. But so that was one bit, and then it was the hype bit. I was very determined to prove that we were not a hype. We had a hype going, but we are not just a hype. With the risk of sounding awfully high horse, I definitely know a lot of bands that were hype that didn't really have records to back it up. I know one thing, a lot of those records that are made by one band that have one good record and they end up doing a really shitty record, that usually crushes like every hope of and unfortunately there are so many examples of that even to this day. Even like after us, there have been many promising debutantes, and then when it's time to write a new record, it's just like, oh, and then it's over, and they even, you know, break up, change band names, and it's just, and I was so set on that is not going to happen to Ghost, because I believe that the well that I've been getting this water from, and this is way deeper, and I knew that I had more ideas than that, and I knew that if I could just make a record that was as playful and as playfully written as Opus was, I think that we can push the boundaries way further than a lot of the one album hypes. But that's why I also started writing immediately, like just go at it, and then just because of touring, and there was a few sort of hiccups, but there were a few. We changed labels in the middle of that, and we had management coming in, and there was like we had a ton, an absolute shit ton of administrational and structural chores to go through at the same time. So therefore it took until 2013 to get the album out. But Infestissimum was written in 2011.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
No, by the time that we recorded the final sort of Infestissimum, it was 1 year old, basically.
You obviously put a lot of thought into the transitions between records. As with the transition between singers on the records. And you talk a lot about growing pains in some interviews that you do. Can you tell me about the growing pains associated with going from Papa to Papa to Papa to Cardinal?
One is the physical aspect, the vanity aspect of it, which is on one hand an asset and a nice thing, because you don't have to worry too much about your looks, your personal looks, same way that most other artists has to deal with age and whatever problems you might have with your own visage. That was a good thing, but it's also a weird thing because you have to get accustomed to seeing a new face every now and then, which is also kind of weird. It's kind of it's kind of like if you got a completely different haircut. It also takes time to, is this really me? Like,
sure.
You know, if you get a crew cut and dye it blonde, you would feel strange, I guess. Sure. You know, no, I think that the biggest problem I have with that, which I am very, very troubled by, is that with age I've developed a slight little claustrophobic thing, which I'm which is not cool. And honestly, I'm actually a better singer than the mask and the getup allows me to be. That is very irritating. I did notice it in the first couple of years because I was not as I didn't have the amount of practice that I have now. But now, when I am a better singer, it's very annoying, being asked to, or I put myself in a position where I'm basically putting a pair of flip-flops on to play a soccer game. That's very irritating because in every other department we're trying to sort of maximize and get into the arena band that we are now currently, and it feels very annoying to be limited that way. We'll see what that entails in the future, but yeah. So if there ever are any changes, that is why.
Okay.
I believe that we can improve on many departments.
Sure. And the period of time from Infestissimum to Meliora, you hit a lot of new high points on Meliora as well, of songwriting, performance, a new character who was much more kind of flamboyant and charismatic, and also a Grammy. Can you tell me about that change?
Towards the end of Infestissimum, when we've gone, on the first record, it was never really a problem because we were for the most part, we were supporting. We were doing festival slots. So our 30 minutes worth of material wasn't entertaining for 30 minutes was relatively easy. Went by pretty quick. Infestissimum saw a lot of headlining, and we were still playing rather moderate venues in size, but we were also sort of touching upon bigger settings. And I don't remember the set length at the time, but it can't have been more than an hour and 15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I think we played most of the material. I don't know exactly when the thought hit my head, but definitely I know that towards the end of the tour, I was just like, this is not flying. This is not good. This is not... It's so still standing. It's not entertaining the way that I think it should be entertaining. Sure, there are probably some people in there like, yeah, this is boring as shit. I love it, but we were never supposed to be like slow and suggestive. It was supposed to be entertaining. So it just dawned on me like, a priest has many get-ups, and there's many significant, like, what's the word? And identifiable get-ups that a priest or a preacher or a bishop can have. So the next one needs to have some sort of pant get-up, because otherwise this will die. And again, I'm talking cult. Cult usually means when it's not doing well.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that it's bad, but it does mean that it's limited in some way. And I felt that was not the way that I wanted to take. And I knew that, I wanted to make a record that was going to be a rock. So we needed to dress accordingly in order for the show to start, coming alive. So that's why we did a big transition into Meliora.
There's a lot of theories as to like Dave Grohl's part in the band, and like it's sort of collaborating with you guys? Like, how deep did that really go?
Beyond the actual recording he did with us and serving as an inspiration, not much more than that.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I mean, of course, Foo Fighters have been very supportive fans and took us out on the road. And so but not more than that. He's not been sort of involved in other records.
Gotcha.
If that is what people are thinking.
I hear a lot of different theories. So
Right.
It's hard to.
Let's just leave them guessing then. And
let's leave them guessing.
yeah,
He's the keyboardist, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the lady mask.
yes.
But sorry, didn't mean to spoil that. So, what can you tell me about the transition from Meliora to Prequel?
Yeah, there were a few drastic things. One was already planned beforehand, as per the Square Hammer video, where there's a clear red cardinal coming in quickly. That's not a coincidence. I really wanted Prequel to be a challenge. Again, to avoid just trampling the same trodden path, because we had always, 3 records in a row, we had sort of just, okay, so here he is, and then that was like a new character already sort of risen to utmost promotional status or whatever, where it felt like that's kind of boring. Like, it would be kind of cool to see someone that maybe isn't perfect. I think that, you know, the idea of imperfectism, imperfection, is also a concept of the greater concept of what we're singing about and what we're messaging. So I wanted there to be like a little bit of, like, yeah, here's a little bit of an underdog that we don't know yet, that might or might not be the man for the job.
Yeah.
And that was a little al dente. But I like that. I think that did something to the career as well, because it also, as with everything with every album that we've done and every cycle, there's been one sort of like thing coming that has been sort of an experiment from my end. Let's see how far we can push this. Goulet. He is. Cardinal. Just to see like how this box that I'm thinking outside, there's still a box that you have to think outside. How elastic is it? How can we expand it? You know, can we, how big is it? Because it's been proven that it's kind of unclear. To the great dismay of some more conservative hard rock Puritans, but I think that that's the way to go. That's all my heroes have always pushed the envelope in some way or form. Even, you know, the teenage death metal high school people that made really cool records, but some way or form they were thinking outside the box and they were thinking in a different way, and I think that that's one of the problems within metal. It's just because it has been around for such a long time, and there's clear rules now and clear traditions and all those things that the reason why this genre is here from the first reason for it is just to break those. But it's just, that's just the nature of the beast, I think. It's just the nature of things existing for longer than a minute. All of a sudden there will always be a sort of embracive factor and something that sort of stabilizes into a dogma and a lot of isms.
We hear that Papa 4 is on his way. So I have two questions about that. With all the three other Papas being dead, do you think the Cardinal has any idea of his potential impending doom? And how far have you thought into the future for Papa 4, whoever he may be?
As to the Cardinal's wits, I don't know. There are a lot of exalted people who are not as smart as they appear or want to appear. It's almost like the smarter you say yourself that you are, the dumber you are. So I don't really know. I mean, he seems to be pretty full of himself, but if he's aware of the unavoidable, I don't know. How far I have looked into the future. It's hard to say, because it's like there's one practical aspect of everything, and then there's this storyline, and they go in tandem a little. They change as the settings change. Right now, I am very clear with what I'm supposed to do next year and the next album cycle. So I know pretty well what we're doing up until 2022. Practically, it's a little bit more firm, because we're leaving this album cycle on a quite high note, just because we've managed to sort of get into the arena as we're doing full production shows, and we intend to start doing that next album cycle. So it's, for me, I think that we've sort of now gotten the key to where we're supposed to be in terms of production autonomy and all that. So for me, the most important thing is just to build a strategy and a schedule where we can do that all over the place as smooth and effectively as possible. Without segregating people or under delivering here and there. Might sound vague, but yeah, there's a lot of practicalities that goes into planning the future. But then again, if let's say that for some reason next album tanks, or we're just like not in demand anymore, and things sort of go sideways, that will of course affect my planning as well. So you can have a vision, you can have a goal, but you should pack that vision with many, many, many ideas. And you have to think a little bit like a general. You don't know what happens. If I bomb that fortress, there are certain things that might happen, but I have to be aware that there might be something that I have no idea about. So I have to have another plan, because if there is a big ass flying saucer coming out of, I don't know, I have to be prepared to sort of shoot it down. And you have to be like that when it comes to anything, your restaurant, your tile company, or you have to be sort of flexible. But if we get to do that, I have a lot of plans for that. Yeah. You know, there's a string of things that we can do, but we're still working off of crossing out things that I've had on the idea sheet for even longer than Ghost have been around. A lot of the stage ideas that we're doing now, and a lot of the staging ideas that we're incorporating into the next production, is things that I came up with 20 years ago. So it's just for me, it's sort of endless. I can do this forever because I can do it for other bands, you know, because I have so many fun little things that we can do. So I'm just trying to do as many of them as I can before it's over.